Well, hello Crosslink. Happy Wednesday morning. Hope that you are doing well and everything's going really good for you. Penny and I were able to take a trip last week up to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, just to get away for a couple days, and we were thankful for that. I got back and heard a story that I wanted to share with you. It's about a seminary professor that was vacationing with his wife there in Gatlinburg. One morning they were eating breakfast at a little restaurant, and they were hoping for a quiet little family meal. While they were waiting for their food, they noticed a distinguished looking white-haired man moving from table to table, visiting with the guest. The professor leaned over to his wife and said, "I hope he doesn't come over here." But sure enough, the man did come over, and he said, "Hey, where are you folks from?" A nice friendly voice. And they said, "Oklahoma." He said, great to have you here in Tennessee." He said, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "I teach at a seminary." He said, "Oh, you teach preachers how to preach, huh? Well, I've got a really good story for you." And with that, the gentleman pulled up a chair and sat down with him at the table. The professor sort of looked at his wife and thought to himself, "Great, what I need is another preacher story." Well, the man started. He said, "See that mountain over there?" And pointed out the window. He said, "Not far from the base of that mountain, there was a boy born to an unwed mother. He had a hard time growing up because every place he went, people always asked him the same question: who's your daddy?" Whether he was at the grocery store, the drugstore, school, or whatever, it was always the same question: who's your daddy? Well, he would hide at recess and lunchtime with students. He would avoid going to stores and because the question hurt him so bad. When he was 12 years old, a new preacher came to town. And he came to his church, and he would always, the young man would always go in late, and he would leave early just so he didn't have to have people ask the question, "Who's your daddy?" One day the preacher said the benediction so fast he got caught, and he had to walk out with the crowd. And just about the time that he got back to the door, the new preacher, not knowing anything about him, put his hand on his shoulder and asked him, "Son, who's your daddy?" The whole church got quiet. He could feel every eye in the church looking at him, everyone waiting finally to get the answer to their question, "Who's your daddy?" This new preacher thought, he sort of sensed that something wasn't right. He was looking around, and he used discernment that only the Holy Spirit could give him, and he said the following to the scared little boy: "Wait a minute. I know who you are. I see the family resemblance. You're a child of God." He patted him on the shoulder and said, "Boy, go get your inheritance. You have a great one. Go and claim it." With that, the boy smiled for the first time in a long time and walked out the door a changed person. He was never the same. Whenever anybody asked him, "Who's your daddy?" he would say, "I'm a child of God." The distinguished gentleman got up from the table and said, "Isn't that a great story?" He started to walk off, and the professor looked at him and said, "Yes, that is a great story." And the man turned to leave, and he said, "If that preacher hadn't told me that I was a child of God all those years ago, I probably wouldn't have amounted to anything." And he walked away. Seminary professor and his wife were sort of stunned and called the waitress over and he said, "Do you know who that man was, the one that was sitting with us that just left?" And she said, "Oh yeah, everybody knows who that is. That's Ben Hooper. He's the governor of Tennessee." Someone in your life today may need a reminder that they're God's children. Maybe it's you. If you're saved today, you're a child of God. I see the family resemblance. If it's not you, maybe it's somebody that you're going to encounter today. So I encourage you to make sure that you lift somebody up today and remind them that you're one of God's children. You have a great day.